All right, here we go. This is a discussion on design, engineering design, and brainstorming. So we're going to go through a handful of slides here real quick. And then there's a couple different activities that are associated with this, and I'll explain it as we do go through. So first thing we want to talk about is the design loop and examples of the design loop. In this case, the example given is the first Apple computers. And you can see that the initial monitors that were used in these computers, these are back from the 80s. This is what it looks like. But with decades of work and constantly going through the design cycle, we have other generations, the evolution of the computer and the monitor, and you can see that it changes over time. And I think most of us would agree that it gets better and better. So the reason we see this is because it's an iterative process, and there's no real start point, no real end point. You're constantly looping through the design cycle. It allows you to find the good ideas and allows you to identify the bad ideas, and then to determine what your best options are for design. It allows you to be creative. It allows you to be innovative with your solutions, and in a technologically advanced world, this is something that all successful companies do. So when we talk about the design loop or the design cycle, it's going to look something like this. And I think there's a lot of different design cycles out there. Sometimes it can be as small as maybe 5 or 6 or 7 steps. Sometimes it can be expanded into 12 to 14 steps. So here is a design cycle right here. The biggest thing you need to see is that it is cyclical. And there, like I said, there's no real start point, there's no real end point. You're just constantly going through this to improve the product, because nothing will ever be 100% perfect. It can be good, but it can always be made better. And so if you were to break this up and turn it into a linear process that did have a start point and did have an end point, you would start right here with the recognize the need, and then you would work through the different steps in a linear process and get to this evaluate test results, and that would be your end. But that would not be a desirable way to do it, because you don't want to get to the end and say, hey, there we are, we're done. Now we're not going to do any more, because you could still make it better. An example of this might be, let's say a car company. Let's say you work for Honda, and they have a 2014 Honda Pilot, and then for that year, which would probably be 2013, for that year you're selling the 2014 Honda Pilot, but behind the scenes, they're working on it. They're making it better. They've already identified things that they know they can make better than what they had in the 2014. So that next year, you're going to get a different output. And it's going to be the 2015 Honda Pilot. And it's even better than the previous one. And it's all because they were going through this design loop process. So we have the recognize the need, defining the problem, plan the project, gather information, generate alternative concepts, which really is your brainstorming. That's where you're coming up with lots of ideas. Evaluate the alternatives. So now we're becoming critical. Initially, you're not critical in brainstorming. Now we're becoming critical of our brainstorming ideas. Select the most promising concept. Build the prototype. Test it. And evaluate your test results. And then do it again and again and again. And what you can see is there are lines going all through this from every step to every other step, because it's possible to jump from one step to this next. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a linear process, and it certainly should never be constrained to that. You can go from any step you're at to any other step that would be applicable for what you're doing, and that's important. It's called the design loop or the design cycle. All right. Next one, when we're talking about brainstorming, which if I go back, is this generating alternative concepts. That is the brainstorming step. There are certain rules. And I would say the most important one is number 2, and we'll get to that in just a second. But in brainstorming, the whole goal is to do divergent thinking, to come up with lots of ideas at the same time. You have a group of maybe, let's just say 10 to 15 people. And you want to get creative. You want to think outside the box. So you're getting crazy ideas. And they may not even be feasible, but that's okay. We're not worried about that right now. So we're going to jot down all the ideas. All the ideas that people have, we're going to write them down, because they may end up being great ideas. And if we're not thinking outside the box, if we're not getting crazy, then we're going to have a hard time coming up with anything new. So we're going to write them all down. We're not going to criticize. Okay? Anything's okay. It may be the craziest idea ever, and you might know that it's not even possible, but that's okay. We're not going to criticize at this point. If it ends up being a bad idea, we'll weed it out later, but not during the brainstorming phase. We build on other ideas. So if somebody mentions one idea, oh, okay, well, what if we did that and we did this? Okay, so one crazy idea can lead to lots of crazy ideas. And what those are, they're original thoughts. There's something that didn't exist before, and that's okay. Okay, and then number 4, the more ideas, the better. Okay, we're going to do an activity right now, and you'll find that on the Schoology page, there are 3 different Google Docs that are linked there, and you should have editing privileges to each. Now, each group, you're working in groups of, I believe you're in 2 or 3 at this point. Each group is responsible for taking one page from that document and coming up with a solution. And I only want you to spend maybe, let's say, 5 minutes. I know it says 3 here, but since you're creating it on a presentation slide, you might need a little more than 3. And you and your partners could even divvy it up, where one of you focuses on one of the prompts and one of you focuses on the other one. But you need to develop a slide that's a good shows your solution that your group came up with. So the first prompt is this: use this item in your kitchen. Okay, so you're given this string down here, and you're given the opportunity to use it for some function in the kitchen to improve the kitchen, improve somebody's life, to do something, to have some functionality. Okay, what will it be? That's your first prompt. Okay, put your answers onto the Schoology page under the link for string in kitchen. Now let's go to the second prompt, and like I said, your group can divvy these up so each person can focus on the development of your slide for each prompt, a different person. The second prompt is this: use this item in a medical application. And the third prompt is this: incorporate this into a renewable energy device. What will you do? Okay. Now, as you're doing this, you're going to want to bring in shapes. On your presentations, you'll find that there's an insert slide. You should be able to insert different shapes into this. You could also find pictures that might be relevant to the idea that you want to develop. But you need to express your idea. So when we go through these as a class, you can stand up in front of the rest of the class and tell us what were you thinking? What were you hoping that this would be able to do? There are points for originality, and so hopefully you can come up with some thoughts that other groups didn't. If everybody comes up with the same thought, then it obviously wasn't that original of a thought, unless everybody just liked it so much that they copied you. Okay? And lastly, we have a couple quotes to go over. So this first one says, experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted. Okay, so things don't always happen the way you were hoping that they would happen, and that's okay, because you're going to learn from it, and the next time through, maybe you approach it in a slightly different way and you have more success. So that experience is what you come out with. Okay, and the second one is similar, but fail often so that you can succeed sooner. Okay, it's all right to fail. Nobody expects you to be right all the time, and in the real world, nobody is right all the time. There's lots of great ideas out there that never went anywhere, and there's a lot of ideas that weren't that great to start with. And that's okay. Nobody expects you to be perfect all the time. Nobody in the real world, nobody expects you to be perfect even most of the time. We want you to be creative and think of wild, crazy ideas that haven't happened before. Okay, so don't be afraid to shoot for the stars, and we'll see where you land. When you're done with this, take the quiz. There's a 10-question quiz, and then we'll come together as a whole class and we will share our brainstorming ideas. Again, here's the first one, and the second one, and the third one.